Dr. Johnson, who is a forward thinker, a lead learner, and a steward of his discipline, poised to reimagine the world for the common good of all through innovative practice, driven through responsibility to make learning relevant through engagement and empowerment in building capacity for future readiness. Passionate about the promise, potential, and power of music and mindfulness. And his presentation today is called Innovation, the New Imperative. And good morning again, sir. Thank you for your patience with us.
This is fantastic. How very awesome and how inspiring. The video that you just showed. I mean, it says it all. And I'm so very fortunate to be on the stage now with you. And I'd like to start by saying thank you to both Julie and Jake for the invitation to have the gift stage and have this opportunity to share my personal insights and experiences. So with that, I can start if I can just share my screen.
Absolutely.
So can you see my screen, Julie?
I can.
Super. So let's get started then. Right. So the first thing I like to do is actually take this opportunity now that I have the virtual world stage to read a letter that I actually wrote, and it reads as follows. So what's all this fuss and buzz about innovation? I want to make an appeal to education leaders and policymakers around the world. The time is now to embrace innovation in our learning organizations. As we look ahead to a desired future, we need to unfreeze some current assumptions, attitudes, and dispositions and move forward in an intentional and mindful way. While the debate centered around effective versus progressive rages on, and which comes first, my take is both can coexist symbiotically. I'm a strong proponent of the 80-20 principle, where 20% creative, innovative, and inventive learning experiences can strengthen the rest of the 80%. So let's get started. And I think the testament to that was the video that you just saw. If you in the session a few minutes ago, it says it all, like how that 20% can actually feed that 80%. Perhaps the starting point for me is to share some hard truths. The first hard truth I think that we all have is that we have been solving problems for a very long time. However, we are now faced with many new complex problems. And the third hard truth is we have to learn to solve these complex, wicked problems. As we all know, the only reason we are out doing it the way we are right now is because of COVID and what it's done. So think about the future and think about the challenges that we'll have to face as a collective. Perhaps this visual for me says it all. It's a modified version of what they call the Ansov's matrix, which comes from the business world, which looks at two different dimensions of challenges versus the solutions. And my suspicion is for a good part of what we've been doing in our learning organizations and in our schools has been centered in quadrant number 1, which is this quadrant which deals with familiar challenges and known solutions, right? Many of our projects and many of the innovative ideas and experiences that we've shared with our students continues to take us into quadrant number 2, which is the familiar, but yet unknown solutions, and where I'd like us to go. Okay, and my hope is this session will give you a little insight for how perhaps we can do that, is to move into quadrant number 4, which is a class of solutions which looks at challenges that are unfamiliar and solutions that are unknown. So enter innovation. What is innovation? The word's been thrown around and everybody's talking about innovations, but what exactly is innovation? We see a lot of schools and their decals and their vision is to prepare students for the future, but a future that is completely unknown. So most of us are now looking at future making as part of innovation, creating the future that we so desire. But for me, it goes one step further. It's more than just making the future, it's proofing the future. So innovation for me is future proofing, because our collective impact is going to have far-reaching consequences. Lots of different definitions about innovation, and this is the one that really resonates for me. It's from Dr. Banerjee, the founder of Change Labs at Stanford University, and he says that innovation at the most fundamental level is the ability to outperform normative approaches by a significant margin. And let's note the word significant, and to deliver new value, outcomes, paradigms, and transformations. So the question is then, now that we know a little bit about what innovation is about, why do we need innovation? As today's innovators, we have a responsibility to build the collective tomorrow. A lot of what you've just seen centers around problem solving. For me, it moves into a new sphere, and this is basically, we need to create a breed that is able to go out there and to actually find the problem. So beyond just solving problems, known problems, or unknown problems, we need to have students and learners who can go out there and find those problems. The scope for innovation is beyond us today. And as you can see in these two diagrams, what are designers and innovators facing? What used to be a single dimensional approach, simple problems, single discipline, is no longer an imperative for us. It's moving into complex areas, complex problems, complex challenges, multidisciplinary. And what used to work in the past, where we worked alone or we worked in single disciplinary teams, has to be extended into cross-disciplinary teams, transdisciplinary teams. But again, let's be cognizant of the fact that innovation is not suited for every single problem and challenge, right? It's best suited when multiple spheres collide, where there's an intersection between theory and practice, logic and emotion, rational and the creative, human needs and economic needs. It's a symbiotic link between systems, societies, and the individuals. At the end of the day, I took a little time to kind of research and find, perhaps some golden nuggets which I'd like to share here when we think about innovation and why innovate. Innovation basically creates capacity to bridge gaps, okay, and capacity to solve new problems. It's most definitely an underleveraged resource, and it has huge potential for value creation. It supports rethinking of an existing systems, restructuring it, strengthening current approaches, which miss opportunities for systematic solution development. It most definitely will reinvent the organization and future-proof the organization. It raises our competitive advantage. It creates new value rather than us just capturing value, right? And it also builds deep understanding for the needs of our stakeholders. And most importantly for me, the last point, which is it supports the great need for defining gainful ways of being part of of solving the larger problems that threaten the stability of our entire civilization. That is hugely profound, right? And as we all can stand and be a testament to what has happened over the last year, right? I mean, it's not something that any of us could have predicted. There were talks about, a virus and all of this craziness, but nobody would have known that this is reaching a point where it's actually threatening the stability of us as a collective and as societies, right? So how do we go about it? So now that we've seen the what, why, it's how do we foster innovation? This is one of my favorite, okay? I love this depiction of perception, right? As much as we all look at the ways that we need to design something, you see how many different interpretations and variations of what the customer really wanted, which is that little figure at the bottom, right? All they wanted was a tire hung on a tree branch. And guess what we did? We went out there and did all of the other kinds of solutions, right? But that's okay too, because we all have our ways and means and approaches. So for me today, it's all about rethinking about innovation. It's about moving innovation from just being a process to a mindset. That's the crux for me, and doing it with the right intent to be mindful when we innovate. What does this look like? What used to be, I know how something works, to something like, I wonder how it works. It's a big distinction there, right? A lot of what we see our kids doing, they're looking at, I'm going to work out how this thing works. And that's what we teach them in our science classes, in math, in the languages, in the humanities, how things work. But let's start wondering about how it all works and how it all comes together. Let's put aside all of the prejudices that we've had, try things out and learn from those experiences. Let's take some risks. Let's ask questions, and simple ones too. Let's open ourselves to new ideas and possibilities and opportunities. Let's strengthen our curiosity. Let's challenge the assumptions. Let's understand facts, but let's dig deeper into our own learning, okay? And let's put aside any expectations. What other kinds of outcomes we're looking for? Perhaps none, right? Perhaps let's start from a blank slate. The process itself is very, very iterative, and this comes out with the Change Labs in Stanford, which starts with insights, ideas, reframing of the mental model, shifting, thinking, and then moving to the concepts and the prototypes. And each time you come up with a concept and a prototype, you're turning that around and it's providing you with new insights and new experiences, right? And those feedback again. Again, another hard truth, and that is, if we continue to just take a solely human-centered approach, it most likely will be unsustainable. What we need to do is we need to take a future-centered approach. So what does that involve? If we're going to focus on a future-centered approach, we need to move away from business as usual. We need to deviate from those entrenched norms that we've had, those mental models that we have framed over time, and our decision, okay, processes that we have come to shape our conventional wisdom, okay? So we need to move on. We need to understand the new dimensions of innovation, which centers around three pillars of human desirability, technological feasibility, and economic viability. Most definitely, we need to develop a can-do attitude, a belief in ourselves that we can succeed in any particular situation or challenge. And this notion comes from a construct that was posited by Albert Bandura. In fact, it was the topic of my doctoral research, which talks about four sources from Bandura's work on developing one's own self-efficacy, which is learning from past experiences, learning from observation through experiences of others, learning through coaching and feedback, learning through social persuasions, and finally being in a good state physically and emotionally. And a fifth source was introduced, which is basically the ability to visualize what future looks like, okay, what the future and what future success might look like. With that said, the other very important thing for me is looking at creative thinking that we do when we generate new ideas. Creativity and creative thinking is an important ingredient for innovation. We need to encourage our learners to pivot between divergent thinking and convergent thinking, moving from ideas to facts, moving from questions to answers. And each time we answer a question, we have more questions. And that goes on back and forth. And each time we pivot between the divergent, we get into the convergent and we get back into it again. And this is again an iterative process which moves between abstract and concrete. It moves us from the problem space as we see it into the solution space. And this is a continuous process. While it's been depicted as a cycle, it's not necessarily a cycle. It's a pretty messy, chaotic, disruptive approach to the way we think. One of the things I'd like to share today is a strategy or a framework that I've used that I found very, very powerful and impactful, and that's design thinking, okay? And design thinking is evolving today as a strategy assist for innovation. So what is it? From the folks at IDEO, they've shared some amazing insights into how design thinking can build creative confidence, that confidence to take an idea and act on it. The fact that you can make things, a lot of what your students were sharing with the kinds of things that they were making, starting simple so they don't take too much of a risk. They learn from failure. I prefer not to use the word failure because it's all about experimentation. It's about trying. It's about trying and finding out that something doesn't work. Moving on, it's about developing empathy. The fact that we really need to be empathetic, we really need to understand what those challenges are. We need to iterate, we need to continue to validate those ideas through feedback, continuously in that process of development. We need to remain optimistic because they say optimism is the thing that drives you forward. And finally, for me, the most important one is embracing ambiguity. Okay, the fact that we are willing to take some risk and we have the permission to explore lots of different possibilities so that the right answer can reveal itself. That is profoundly amazing, right? Too often we expect our students to have that right answer. Who says that that's what we need to be teaching them? As they move between the problem space and solution space, it's not so much about following a set of steps or processes, it's a holistic approach. It's about pattern recognition, it's about pattern thinking, and it's also very human-centered. We need to create those conditions, and GIFT has done a fantastic job in creating that condition. So applaud you, Julie and Jake, and the rest of the team for the amazing work that you do to bring and to create those spaces, both physical and mental. The time, both limited and unlimited time to do these things, to build creative confidence and humor. Everybody's laughing, everybody's smiling. It's okay if you want the next, design of the rocket that's going to go up into Mars. That's okay. Let's iterate. Let's learn from our mistakes. Let's just do it. And finally, just remembering that we can all work using the DPT model, which is fantastic because as we bring the breadth of knowledge that we need our students to acquire through school, right, we also need to drill into the depth of expertise and then gain from the other disciplines. So this combination of breadth of knowledge, depth of expertise, and working across teams and across disciplines is what's going to give us the best throughput to kind of turn our minds of our students as design thinkers. That mindset shift, so they're driven by curiosity. Our students are driven to focus on the people, to be empathetic, to experiment and to iterate, to accept complexity as the new norm, right? And to visualize and show and tell those stories as you're doing on this platform. So once again, congratulations, well done. The fact that they're collaborating on the network, imagine 2 days of students sharing alike. I have my nephews and nieces in India watching, and I'm trying to inspire them. They're just like, one is in kindergarten, the other one is in grade 2. I said, this is it. Develop process awareness, reflect on those actions, grow, scale, combine perspectives and frameworks, put it all together. That's the mindset. That's the new you, and we can do it, and you're doing it. So I'm going to put a little plug in, and I hope that GIFT will support me on this one. We are hoping to launch a global international design thinking hackathon, right? To celebrate all of this, to recognize, to celebrate. And my hope was initially to just do it within the German International Schools Consortium. But it's gotten a lot bigger than that because a lot of people were very, very excited. And then as the universe has it, Julie actually reached out to me. And before you knew it, here I am, right? So, it's all meant to be, right? These are things that you don't plan, and, there was no design plan here, right? Just the pieces just fell together. So we want to make it centered around the Sustainable Development Goals. I'm going to reach out to the UN to see how best we can really make this experience real, right? And what is the current immediate need, and have students engage in this process. So we're going to call it CRAFT for now. And it's about future-proofing and future-making. And the hope is that we can do this virtually in the spring of 2021. And it's an opportunity to empower students to reimagine the world that they live in and they will inherit, okay? So we want to encourage them to think and act like design thinkers. We want to give them this opportunity to develop that mindset. And we've already started on the journey, but I think there's a lot of opportunity and there's a lot more possibilities. And if we come together as a collective, I believe we can do it. And I'm very thankful to PTC, one of the premier innovative companies on the planet today. They're amazing. If you haven't experienced the PTC domains of learning and careers, I would most definitely suggest going to ptc.com. I'm very grateful to Bernard and his team and Domenico, who were very supportive, and we are in the process of working with them. They are going to provide a lot of free educational tools and software and training, and supporting the design hackathon that we want to do. So look out for more details, which will be forthcoming, and I will most definitely reach out to Julie and Jake to see if in some way we can also stamp it with the GIFT the logo there on this one. And in closing, a few parting words. For me, it's all about measuring what matters. This morning I was listening to a sermon, and the pastor said, when you look at the decisions you take, you validate them through the results that you see. And that was pretty profound for me. We make a lot of decisions. At the end of the day, the fruit, at the end of the day, it's all about what the outcomes are. And I think it's important for us to measure what really matters. So if this is what we were hoping to do, right? When I came here to Germany, to the International School of Hanover region, we were looking at ways to provide positive feedback, to build on ideas of others, to allow students to solve wicked problems, to try to fail early, fail often, and to improve and generate new ideas, listen, learn from others, build the prototypes, and test even the wildest ideas. So our story goes as follows. I came to Germany in 2017, and it was a pretty traditional approach to the use of technology and design. And in 18, we started working towards building a small robotics program. We phased out some of our centralized computer labs. In a very small room, we built our first robotics lab. So this is our story, right? Our students were new to the whole, field of robotics and STEM. But lo and behold, we were selected by FIRST to represent Germany as Team Germany. Our mantra was Dare to Dream, which came from a shuttle astronaut, Bruce McCandles, who I met many, many years ago at NASA. And he signed a poster for me, which I would never forget. And the poster reads, Dare to Dream, JJ. Okay, you're never going to hurt nobody, but you're going to get to some interesting places. And lo and behold, we ended up in Dubai for the first Global Challenge 2019 in October. And our students, as you can see, presenting at the SAP headquarters, okay, in Dubai, to experts and design thinkers and, engineers. How impactful was that? They spent 4 hours there, and perhaps it was just our time. We ended up coming third in the world out of 192 countries. Okay, we came back winning the Albert Einstein Award for the first Global International Excellence Award, which was phenomenal. Out of 192 countries, a rookie team that had, I would say, less than 10 months of experience. But the team dared to dream, and they ended up with the Prime Minister of Lower Saxony. The bottom right picture is them at the Chancery House just before the dinner that he hosted for the team. How impactful, how powerful. Is this something that our students will remember for the rest of their lives? For sure, right? The other thing that we ended up doing in 2019 was we got some funding from a parent, and we actually created our first fabrication lab. It's just a 30 square meter, space. It's a container box. It's a portable classroom because, we're short of space at the school. And we created our first grade 9 sustainable innovations class called the Project Green Machine, right? Which was actually a groundswell from a teacher in the humanities department, right? And this grew, and to a point that we actually ended up building our first bamboo bike. And the project is so powerful because there's so many new opportunities. Unfortunately, because of COVID, it slowed down a little bit, but we were able to create our first project green machine bike called the Green Lantern, right? And then we have now 3 more bikes that have been created, all by students in the grade 9 class. And as we ride away on Green Lantern into the sunset, let's remember that here's an opportunity, and the possibilities are infinite for us to come together as a collective to make the world a better place. So with that, I would like to say thank you to Gift, thank you to Julie, thank you to Jake for this opportunity, and all the organizing team and the rest of you, and good luck and congratulations, all you young innovators, coaches, mentors. Let's keep the great work going, and thank you once again.
Well, thank you. I don't even know where to start. This was fantastic. It really kind of opened my eyes, because having worked with young innovators for the past 19 years, I think now, I guess I never related the importance of the problem finding over the solution. We're so reactive. We're such a society of it went wrong, what happened, as opposed to let's look for a way, let's find all the things we can so they don't ever go wrong. And it's a different perspective, and one I need to wrap my head around. I think we've been doing it, but maybe accidentally through the programming. And so thank you for pushing that to the front of my brain now, so it nags me forever and ever. I would like to say, when Dr. Johnson talks about me reaching out to him, he often talks about me stalking him. So sometimes stalking is worth it when you get somebody to come and to show up. And I would love to talk more. I know we don't have time today to talk about too much more of it, but I'd love to talk more about craft, about the design thinking hackathon you're talking about. And of course, we certainly want to make sure we're involved at any degree that we can be with you. And if it's far enough along, and I assume it would be, since you're talking about doing this in spring, we'd love to have you back for the April gift to roll it out. The April gift, which is April 17th and 18th, happens to fall in the World Creativity and Innovation Week. Oh, so wow. It's kind of a perfect time to talk about your new program or your new challenge hackathon at the same time. So we absolutely welcome you back at that time.
That's
Just
brilliant.
checking the rest of my notes to see what else I asked. Future proofing is very cool. Is this something that you, is this something that you've made up yourself, or that you've coined the phrase?
Sort of, right. I've been doing a lot of reading, and one of the things I always look at is, how we can better prepare students for future readiness, and that readiness actually translated to proofing, right? Because it's a little bit more subtle, because it's about, we don't have to all go out there and create the future. It'd be just too chaotic if we all came out and created the future. But I think what it is the ability to kind of be very flexible, very organic, dynamic, and fluid within the constraints of all the kinds of things that our students will face and ourselves do into the future, right? So how can we ensure that we are proved, regardless of what that situation is, right? That we will be able to find ways to deal with it in ways that will make good sense for the common good of all. I always say that, right? So I think proofing perhaps has much bigger value for me in terms of value creation, and innovation can most definitely provide us with those skill sets, the knowledge. And I think for me, again, I go back to the mindset. If we develop thinkers and students who can think as innovators and as inventors and as then I think we most definitely can create a group of students who can go out there and really prove themselves for the future.
Well, that is indeed what we aim to do, and we are very happy to be on the same path with you.
That's brilliant. Yeah, I'm truly amazed. I mean, I never expected anything like this. So, as I watched a couple of the presentations and the kids, I mean, that's just fantastic. The passion, it's not just about here's another project, right? That's what really gets me. And it's just so, I'm infused. I mean, I'm just feeling like re-energized, and I'm sitting here and thinking, oh, wow, think about what is possible then. And what's nice about what you're doing is that you're bringing this together. This seems to be like something that's part of future proofing, right? We're not working in isolation anymore, right? We're working, and perhaps that's the silver lining when you look at COVID and what COVID has actually created for us is we would have never had this opportunity to come together to see what someone is doing, in India, somebody else is doing in China, someone in Australia. And that was the brilliant part of the first global challenge, coming together in Dubai, with 192 countries, with 3,000 plus kids. There were teams that worked in alliances that didn't speak the same language, but who cared? We had a common language, and that was to create a robot that was going to perform a particular task at hand. The challenge was at hand, and that was it, single-minded. And for me, that's one of the joys of music too. And I love playing music. I don't speak any German here, but I play with a lot of German musicians who don't speak English, right? But it's the language of music, and I say it's the language of love. And just being mindful that we can transcend all those boundaries and all the things that we are challenged with, and I don't want to get into the weeds here, but I think it really changes the way we approach life and the world. And really, it's really a huge opportunity. And to see the kids coming together and sharing the ideas. And those ideas, again, are planting the seeds for something into the future, right? I mean, think about it. Like you see somebody else, because I watched one of the projects just before the start of my presentation. I'm thinking, wow, that could really work, and then there are places on the planet that need those kinds of minds to go in there. And who knows what those opportunities and possibilities are going to be. So for me, that's the exciting part, that we really don't know what we've opened up here,
But we do know it's good.
It is more than good.
I don't know if you had an opportunity last night, or it might have been in your morning. We had the first teen panel ever last night, and the same group of students will be coming back in an hour and a half, I believe. And they are from Chile and China and India, the US, and I'm missing one country. Khulud, do you remember the fifth country? Chile, China, US.
Indonesia, maybe?
Canada. I'm so sorry. And we didn't know what would happen. And these students are all between 13 and 15, and they had one meeting prior to the panel discussion that they held, and came up with a topic and came up with who was going to lead the first of the team panels. And actually they came up with every aspect of it. And it started off slow for the first couple of minutes. And by the end of it, they were all so engaged and working together. And it was beautiful. I mean, we could not have orchestrated it better ourselves. They did a fabulous job. And they were talking about education as it was just before and after COVID for them. And all of them were different because they're from different places and their education is a little bit different. And then they're coming on in an hour and a half, and they'll be talking about some of the solutions they can think of, or some of the things that they think will improve the relationship between themselves and their teacher, or their schools and themselves and their, and their family environment around COVID. And if you have a chance to step back in and listen to it, do so, or watch it on YouTube. But that's kind of the same thing. It's just getting the kids together from all over the place. There's commonalities and there's some very different aspects to their lives, but it's very cool to get them together and just give them the platform to do it themselves.
Perfect. Yeah, I most definitely will be back to listen to the students, because I think that diversity and that range of experiences that we put together collectively, I think those collective insights what really will transcend, so many of the challenges that we are currently facing.
And then sign up to come back in April and talk a little bit about the Design Thinking Hackathon Craft, as it is known today. And bring some students with you if you'd like, or invite them to participate in whatever way that they would like to. We would love that.
Most definitely.
Thank you so much for your time today.
Once again, thank you very much, and good luck and congratulations, all of you. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.